What's up, guys? How you doing? I'm Paul.
I'm Morgan.
In today's video, we are talking BuzzFeed. We're talking Girl Defined / Bethany Beal from Girl Defined. We're talking about some other Christian influencers, and we may even be lumped into it.
Yep.
Those of you who are just tuning in or watching the playback, our mic went out like 10 minutes ago. It just went kaput, so we're using the camera mic. It may not be quite as crisp, but we'll be back with the mic hopefully in our next video. You guys just hang in there. Good to see you all. Morgan, tell them to subscribe.
All right. Subscribe if you're new here because we're giving commentary on culture, social issues, faith, to help you be in the world,
but of the word. Amen. Shout out to our patrons. Thank you guys for supporting this channel monthly. What you guys do is honestly, it cannot be overstated how much of a blessing that is to be able to continue what we do on YouTube. All right, Morgan, so.
Also, I'm 31 weeks pregnant. I'm just having a rough day, so just FYI.
There it is. You know what? If you can't be real with the peeps, you can't always get on camera and be crazy and happy when maybe you're not totally feeling it. And she's just going to be real. I'm just glad you're here, baby.
I don't know how much longer I'll be here.
Oh, come here. Well, you know what? Seriously, if you're just like, oh, I'm just feeling too bleh, just roll out and I'll carry this thing. But even if you don't have a lot to say, your presence here is appreciated. Seriously.
Okay.
Seriously.
Great.
So it was yesterday, Morgan. It was yesterday on our car ride back from our vacay.
Yep.
That we see Bethany Beal from Girl Defined. They posted a video on their channel, and she's saying that there was a BuzzFeed article. BuzzFeed, you guys know BuzzFeed. It's big. It's big time. BuzzFeed is
huge, like, thing.
Would you call them a news, just like a...
I guess.
Would they be lumped in with like the Fox News, the CNN, or they're a little more of like
they don't have a TV show.
Right. They're a little more of just stories of all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
BuzzFeed.
Yep. BuzzFeed.
BuzzFeed. They got like a ton of people follow them on Facebook, millions and millions, I believe. Anyway, we saw that Bethany was talking about BuzzFeed wrote a story, like pretty much her being front and center, talking about the what's it talking about, Morgan? In gist.
Purity culture gone wild.
Purity culture gone wild. Yeah, that's it. Pull up that first picture, Morgan.
Oh, of course. The pictures have been removed.
Oh, pull them back up.
1 second.
There it is. Nice. Love it. Love it. So this is like when you click on the article, you see when purity culture influencers pivot to sex positivity. No sex turned into now sex. Down at the bottom there, you can see, you can see purity influencers are now posting sexual content after years of content about abstinence. And you guys saw the title that I used. BuzzFeed article calls out Girl Defined for sex hypocrisy. And so we're going to get into that. We're going to read some of this article and see. And Morgan, I genuinely, listen to me, I genuinely want to be opened, because even though Girl Defined, specifically Bethany Beal, is kind of getting targeted from this BuzzFeed article,
no,
we're kind of right there. We're kind of right. All I was going to say is we're kind of right in the same boat. Like, even though we weren't mentioned in this article,
right.
We absolutely could have been. I was reading it like, are they going to talk about us? Because we are pretty much right there in kind of what they're accusing Girl Defined and some other Christian influencers of.
I have no grace for this article at all.
Okay. And I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. I genuinely am. But all I'm saying is I want to be open to, could this article have some truth that maybe we need to receive from? So, yeah, let's go. I let Bethany Beal know on Instagram we're going to be covering this. And she even posted it to her Girl Defined, to her personal page. And she said, I don't know what Paul and Morgan are going to say, but we're still going to be friends after. And I second that, Bethany. So let's get to reading. And we'll kind of discuss in real time. I'm not going to read the full article and then discuss. We're gonna go in real time. Pull up that second picture though, and then I'm just gonna cut loose.
And he's gonna cut loose and go wild.
Yeah, we're not gonna like scroll down and follow my reading, but here's just like how the article starts.
BuzzFeed is definitely more of a digital gossip rag, someone says.
A digital gossip rag? Woo! Doesn't BuzzFeed? I feel like
That's what I feel like. BuzzFeed posts a lot about celebrities, drama, gossip, blah, blah, blah.
And that's one thing Bethany Beal said. She was like, this giant news gossip corporation is writing a story on me.
Yeah, it seems weird, honestly. It seems like they're just like out of content. They're like, we don't know what else to do.
Well, who's the author?
Scour the web.
Who's that author there? Can you read it?
Kelsey Weekman.
Here's my suspicion.
BuzzFeed news reporter.
BuzzFeed news reporter Kelsey. She looks like a girl maybe in her 20s. Perhaps she was kind of in this, who knows? But I wouldn't be that surprised if maybe she, like so many others in the article, mentions it, like how Girl Defined was targeting a Christian audience, but then they got some videos made by giant YouTubers, kind of similar to what's happened with us, that went after them and it blew them up. And suddenly they were like on the spotlight of all kinds of secular audiences. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be that surprised if maybe Kelsey had knew of Girl Defined or followed Cody Ko or these secular,
right.
And then she started working for BuzzFeed and was like, ooh, this will be a fun topic because I'm already kind of familiar with this situation.
True.
Maybe she's on Reddit and reading that type of stuff. But let me just get going. So, Kelsey Weekman, only love from us, but we might have some pushback for you.
Oh my goodness.
We might have some pushback for you from this article. She starts by saying, and this was posted July 6th, a blonde woman, okay, they're about to refer to an Instagram reel that Bethany Beal posted on her Instagram, I want to say around a year ago.
Yeah, almost. In November, it'll be a year.
And it's featuring her husband, and we actually made a video, and I'll link it below, responding to this reel because it caught us off guard a little bit.
People were thrown off.
They were thrown for a little bit of surprise. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
So, fair enough. All right, the article. A blonde woman opens her mouth and looks up at her equally blonde husband. That's a great starting sentence. Dave is equally blonde. He sprays a tall swirl of whipped cream into her mouth and sprinkles chocolate chips on top. He takes a bite of the creamy concoction, and the couple perform a brief out-of-sync dance break to Taylor Swift's Ready for It before sharing a closed-mouth kiss. And then it quotes Bethany, what she said underneath the reel. It says, keeping things fun and spicy, which was part of the caption.
Said, yeah.
Part of Bethany's caption. There's no shortage, the article goes on, there's no shortage of influencer couples doing vaguely sexy gags on the platform, but this post was a striking departure from Beal's former content. For 12 years, she encouraged single people to avoid all sexual content, including, for example, watching TV shows and Instagram reels that mention sex. On Girl Defined, the Christian lifestyle blog and YouTube channel, she shares with her sister, Kristen Clark. After first going viral in 2021 about how she saved her first kiss, she pivoted to content about sex, like selling a $12 PDF with tips for wives on how to talk about it.
Which, let's be clear, we bought that PDF. And there's 150 questions on that PDF, and only 25 of them are sex-related. And they're questions for both the wife and husband to ask one another. So can I just go ahead and say...
Please.
That this article is so, in my opinion, just exaggerated and, like, what... We'll read it at some point probably, but she says like the dozens of whipped cream videos that Bethany Beal posts. I'm like,
she was quoting something.
How do you have the nerve to write that? That's literally so false.
She was quoting someone else, but yeah, that was the way that the article ends. It says dozens of whipped cream videos. I actually messaged Bethany because I was like, I only know the one video, and it's this one, this reel. I don't know of any other, so I messaged Bethany and said, hey, it sounds weird that I'm messaging you this, but how many whipped cream videos have you done? And she said, I just did the one. So, I mean, kind of in some essence,
How many whipped
in
cream?
some essence, shame on you, BuzzFeed,
Yes.
for allowing that to be the end of the article. Shame on you. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not saying that we always have to get everything right. There's always, you know, we talk about stuff. We don't know every detail of every person and story that we're talking about. So
Right.
there's room to get it wrong.
To say something so confidently of dozens of whipped cream videos. Like,
It makes it sound like she's running some type of
weirdo
sex page. You know, like she's got a sex store or something.
So.
Which we'll keep going. But she, in all fairness though, she has pivoted, as they said, and they're about to call out the hypocrisy, so to speak. But she has pivoted since she got married. I think her Instagram, Bethany's in particular, she's like kind of packaged it as, now I want to encourage women of how to be good wives, and sex is part of that.
What do you know? She gets married and she wants to encourage people in their marriage? Wow.
Oh, baby. You got to see the tone of this video. You got to see how this is going to go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Lord help me, please.
Real quick, Michaela says, the article was humorous in the fact that it was like the writer scrolled through their video titles and assumed what the actual content was.
Yeah, I feel like there was actually like zero research done. The only research that this person did who wrote this article was reach out to people on Fundy Snark, which is the worst place you could ever reach out and get help from. Oh my goodness. It's such a joke.
Kelsey says, I feel like a lot of people like BuzzFeed tend to look at Christians as extremely, in all caps, conservative, like missionary only with the lights off conservative. Oh, hello. Given there are some that way, but not all. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, one of the main points of this article is they're saying, like, there are these Christian influencers who push, don't have sex, don't look at anything sexual, sex is bad, and then all of a sudden they get married and they're all of a sudden sex positive and like, sex is great and blah, 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 and how that can be very damaging. If there was a zoom in, I would just zoom in on my face. But it can be very damaging to people, like, that it just, like, out of all of a sudden, she's sex positive and she used to tell me, bad girl, sex bad. And that's just not the reality at all. Like,
well, how about this, Morgan? Let's keep going, because they're about to articulate their side of it, and then you can give your rebuttal.
okay.
So it goes on. The article goes on and says, Beal and Clark's content was predominantly known only in the Christian circles until YouTuber Cody Co shared a video, blah, 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 reacting to videos on Girl Define's YouTube channel, such as, is it okay to be obsessed with guys? And 6 guys you shouldn't date, court, or marry. As a result, Redditors, like you mentioned, and YouTubers called Beal and Clark out as promoters of harmful purity culture. Let's just put a little pause there. Did we call the Girl Defined out for being harmful promoters of purity culture? No. Did Reddit? Sure. Reddit people are nuts.
They're insane. They're the same people who send you death threats. Like, are you kidding me?
Not all of them. But it is just kind of funny that suddenly YouTube and Reddit felt compelled to call out the toxicity of Girl Defined. And I know we're getting a little bit goofy. Redditors, there are fine people on Reddit, but Reddit tends to be, from our experience, we've seen a very dark, nasty side of Reddit. So to use, as a result, Redditors and YouTubers called them out in harmful purity culture. We're just like, spare us.
Show us a sane person that's called that out.
Spare us. Well, they're about to get to some quotes here.
Yes.
Beal is one of several, we're about to get some names here from this BuzzFeed article. Beal is one of several purity influencers who are now posting sexual content after years of posts encouraging abstinence and shame around premarital sex. Okay. It goes into this, a Mormon YouTuber. We're going to skip over her. Chelsea Hurst.
Chelsea, girl.
We met recently. Sweet girl, her and her husband. YouTubers, Chelsea Hurst used to dispense Christian teen advice on avoiding sexual situations, and now she's made multiple videos about her first time with her husband, which she described as joyful, not painful. And it shows two of her thumbnails there. So right now I'm thinking, like, we could totally have been in this article.
Yes.
We've done exactly what they are accusing Chelsea of doing.
Right, obviously, yes. We are perfect.
We are prime. How did we escape this?
I don't know, but I'm glad we did. Part of you wishes that they had mentioned us, doesn't it?
Zoom in. It mentions Brittany Dawn, who we've collabed with quite a while ago.
What?
Didn't we collab with Brittany Dawn?
We did?
Did we?
No.
Who did we collab with? Tiffany Dawn.
I was like, you have no idea who you're talking about. Brittany.
Who's Brittany Dawn?
on Instagram,
Oh,
but
are we?
no, we never collaborated with Brittany.
Scratch that.
You're not friends. I'm friends.
Oh, sorry. Blah, blah, blah. It's not necessarily inconsistent for Christian women who talk about not having sex before marriage to then start talking about sex after marriage. But the change can be jarring for some followers who are used to the influencers' pro-abstinence messaging. And the swerve typically happens without any explanation of the transition. And then now it's going into the reel. You can see here they used, it looks like there we go.
No.
Can you see that? There it is. They put like 3 pictures of the reel back to back to back. For every response that called Beal's whipped cream video a beautiful view of what marriage should be, other followers found the shift hypocritical. And then it's quoting someone that says, "Don't you cater to young girls?" One wrote in the comments. "Y'all are supposed to be reaching out to single Christian girls." Another added, "Bethany, will you at least admit that you and your sister have contributed to the idea that Christians need to appear to be pure in all circumstances? It is fine for you to change your minds. That shows growth and maturity. But you are losing a lot of people with this kind of content after what you have preached about," someone else wrote. So how about this, Morgan? So far, we've been completely negative against this BuzzFeed article.
Correct.
Is it fair, though, to say that when we made our video reacting to this reel, we said that it did catch us a little bit off guard? Did it not?
Yeah.
And
A little, but
that could we say that we kind of see a little bit of what they're saying here? Again, hear me out. I'm not saying that this is the article got it right, but did it seem like maybe Bethany in particular did kind of a little bit of a jump?
I think, in my opinion, I feel like it was a gradual jump. Yes, that reel was maybe like the steamiest thing she's ever done, but like she has very openly and very frequently shared a lot about just sex within marriage, and she literally wrote a book. Her and her sister, before she was even married, she wrote this book, Sex, Purity, and the Longings of a Girl's Heart. And so it's like she has never not talked about sex within marriage and God's design for sex and intimacy. And so this idea that she just went from sex bad to woo, sex good,
Sex
let's party, I'm crazy for sex.
Went back from sex bad to sex crazed.
Yeah. No, it's just completely unrealistic, and what they're trying to say to me is just the dumbest thing ever. I'm sorry.
Well, it goes on to say Christian influencers have long leaned into purity culture content, posting tips for abstaining from sex while dating.
Wow.
And hacks to make your summer clothes more modest. The word sex features frequently in the titles of Girl Defines YouTube videos and blog posts, but always as an urge to overcome rather than an experience to celebrate. Conquering sexual thoughts and how to deal with sexual struggles are common topics.
Right.
So here's the part that the world, this BuzzFeed article is missing. Okay, can we all establish this? And let's use this as a special teaching moment here. Sex before marriage, and it goes on, and it's, you know, it's pushing this idea that people like Girl Defined and Bethany and people like Chelsea or us, sex is bad, you should fear it, you should run from it.
No matter what.
Awful, shame. And then suddenly
we get married and we change our minds.
We change our minds, or we change our tones. It's never, and maybe there are channels that have done that. None of the ones that I'm seeing them featuring have.
No.
When I look at the Girl Defines content, when I look at the books that they've written, the stuff that they're so vocal with their positions, it's, here's what it is, and here's what the BuzzFeed's missing. Sex outside of marriage is not the way God designed it. Sex inside of marriage is awesome and beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, making videos that give tips on how to abstain from sexual things during dating is completely normal from a Christian perspective. And of course they're going to be making videos like that when she's single. She can't really talk about sex within marriage when she's not married yet. So then when she gets married, she's obviously going to start being able to encourage you more in what sex within marriage looks like. And I think, and she's mentioned this before, like, and we have too, just how like the church and Christians in general don't talk a lot about sex within marriage in maybe a like beautiful sense, and encourage it, and encourage intimacy, encourage getting to know your spouse in a deeper way, encouraging, you know, bringing in tools to help you out, whatever that might look like. So she's like, I'm going to talk about that. And I'm seeing that it's a thing that people are actually like needing and desiring. So my Instagram page is going to become a little bit of that, or all of that. And I think that that's totally fine. Just like, you know, naturally as you go through stages in life, that's usually what your social media looks like. Just like for me,
yeah,
single, married, talking about marriage, talking about the Lord and what he's doing with my life in marriage, talking about my infertility struggles and what he's doing in that, talking about in my pregnancy journey and what he's doing in that. Like, it just kind of follows you along, just like it would anyone. So to make this a big deal is just so goofy.
Let's keep going. According to the dictates of purity culture, married Christian men, okay, so it's kind of saying like there's a difference between how men are treated within purity culture and women. We're not going to go into the deep dives of purity culture. I'm not saying purity culture is a perfect thing. It's let's like go to what does the Bible say? Let's try to understand the Bible's, God's heart for sex, and then go after that. Is that going to look more like purity culture than what would be the opposite of purity culture? Just
sexual liberation.
Sexual liberation? I would say, yeah. I would say the biblical response to sex is going to look more like purity culture, which is guarding your purity. It's not that if you mess up, you're forever written off is worthless. It's not. But it is. It's protecting the beautiful thing, which is sex and purity, saving it for marriage. The opposite, the sexual liberation, in my opinion, embracing sexual liberation is done way more harm. It's particularly to someone who desires to walk with God and obey God's commands, way more harm, that ideology, than this purity culture, which is so demonized.
Right. There's obviously a scale, but purity culture, just not even purity culture, but what the world calls purity culture, which is just following God's design for sexual intimacy, is healthy.
Again, it's not necessarily going to be perfect, but
right.
That's what they're trying, for the most part, what we've observed.
Yeah. Yep.
To achieve. Blah, blah, blah. It mentions Cola Brandt and his tweet that went pretty big, I believe, that he tweeted in 2017. He said, "No longer a virgin, 100. Hashtag marriage rocks."
Well, it's interesting too that like this article is like getting mad at Christians for talking about sex in a positive way. Like, isn't that what you people want? Like, I'm so confused. You can never please these people. You can't talk bad about sex, but you can't talk good about sex either. Shame on you.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
It's quoting Bethany Beal and some of the stuff she said about how she thinks Christians should do a better job on this topic. Okay, here it says, but these influencers' sex-positive content is generally pretty vague. There's no guidance about which content to read or watch.
That's just literally not true at all.
Followers are left to figure it out themselves, and there's little discussion by Christian influencers about contraception, pleasure, or communicating needs to a partner.
Once again, not true at all.
I mean, we've talked about that. I would say we've probably made now 5, 6, 7 videos on how to communicate sexual needs and how to grow in having good sex with your husband and wife.
Yeah, and Bethany consistently shares like resources and podcasts.
We've used Bethany's book to help our sex life. So that's, you guys literally mentioned Bethany's PDF, but now you're just writing it off as it's not going into this stuff, which it literally is.
Yeah. Yep.
Former followers of the purity culture Beal pushed, I love that. Former followers of the purity culture Beal pushed are frustrated that she's not being held accountable for her own anti-sex messaging, which helps uphold the norm of women not knowing much about sex when they enter marriage. Maddie, a 24-year-old graduate student, most interviewees requested that their surnames be withheld to protect their privacy. Good. Said she has an issue with Beal failing to recognize herself as part of the problem. In a 2017 blog post, Beal and Clark called secular culture sex-crazed and condemned...
They said that?
We probably said that.
They said that.
And condemned what Maddie called aggressive, bold, and flirtatious behavior. For example, making the first move. She's now framing her social media presence around being, this is in quotes, around being a Christian woman who isn't afraid to talk about sex, and completely ignoring that all she promoted in the last 5 years was the notion that women could only be fulfilled if they repressed their sexual desires at all costs.
That's
Maddie said.
not true.
Historically, you have espoused the same rhetoric you're now trying to counter hypocritical.
Yeah, it's just not true.
You've gone pretty soft and quiet.
All I keep saying, I just keep saying, it's just not true. It's just not the reality of how Girl Defined, Bethany Beal, other Christian influencers have carried themselves when it comes to talking about sex. And again, it's just pushing this whole idea of if you say to people that they should say sex for marriage and that like sex is absolutely a beautiful thing, but within the right context, God's design for it, like that's just absolutely horrible.
Well, it goes on, it quotes this girl, Kayla, who talks about being hurt by the purity culture movement and kind of blaming. It says, it's really hard for me when I see accounts like Girl Defined. They have pretty graphics, innocent enough language and scripture. They're attractive and bubbly. They present this way that doesn't seem harmful, and yet it is, and it applies uneven standards to young girls and to women. And they're not actively listening to those of us who have been harmed by this movement. Let me say real quick, I do believe, just like any movement, it can be abused. And I'm not here to advocate for purity culture, so to speak. I want biblical...
toxic purity culture.
I want biblical culture around sex and purity. I do.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, and so I'm saying, like, I do think there have been women that have been hurt by it, that have a heart for the Lord, and perhaps the authorities in their life come down and push this stuff, and it makes them see themselves as worthless if they've messed up, or that sex is just this awful thing and it messes with them. But again, let's focus on who this article is targeting. Bethany and other Christian influencers like her. I'm not seeing that with her. No. So to me, so far, this argument from this article isn't holding a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And then it quotes Sunny, a moderator of the Fundy Snark Uncensored subreddit. Oh, that's juicy.
That's a brilliant...
That's abusive.
Source.
Brilliant source. She told BuzzFeed, The purity influencers posts clumsy and client blah blah blah. They think it would be better if Beale recognized that her upbringing and purity culture contributed so much to that difficult transition. Encouraging total abstinence from all sexual content before marriage and an obsession with sex the moment after the wedding is a harmful expectation of purity culture. Aaron Pritchard, a sex therapist who works with Christian women, told BuzzFeed News, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Let's just...
I feel like we can wrap this up.
I think we can wrap it up. Let me just get to that last thing. Okay, here's like the last part that she mentioned. There's a quote that says, "It might be changing the way they think about women's worth just generally and giving them the confidence to figure out what attitude towards sex works for them." She continued, "Moderator Sunny said it was important to recognize when influencers like Beale were doing something beneficial." So now it's like right before the last blow, it's given a little bit of like, let's be gracious towards influencers like Bethany. Let's recognize if they do something good. And then it quotes this person, Sunny, I believe is who it's quoting. "Could it have been better? Yeah, but we can't sit around waiting for perfection before we encourage her. If we do, then her and many others like her will never take the first steps out."
Meaning, could the transition from sexual or purity culture to sex positive been better?
Mm-hmm. And they're saying,
yes, it could have been better.
Let's encourage her to do better in that department.
Well, no, let's still be encouraging that she is now sex positive, is what this person is saying.
Okay. They told BuzzFeed News, "Still could have done without the dozens of whipped cream videos, though." End of quote. So it's quoting this person, Sunny. "The dozens of whipped cream videos. There's only one, Sunny." And this
Sunny, maybe you just watched the whipped cream video dozens of times, but there's only one whipped cream video.
And the person who authored this article should have done a little research and corrected Sunny instead of letting that be the last sentence of the whole article. Leaving us with that.
Yeah.
All right. Woo! You guys heard our rebuttal as we went through. We shared our thoughts. It's a totally different ball game, pre-marriage to post-marriage. It just is. So they're like, oh, it's suddenly this big flip, this huge switch that came across as hypocritical, espousing sex is bad. I love sex. Sex is awful. Sex is great. First of all, that never happened. And, you know, the secular world, the sex craze culture, as Bethany apparently called it in 2017 or whatever, it is. And so we are going to speak out against it, and it's not going to make sense to a lot of people. Hopefully we can say it in love, as Girl Defined does. Literally, they are the sweetest, most gentle Christian sisters on YouTube.
So sweet.
And if they're getting hate, if they're getting these articles published about them, you know that no Christian is safe. And that's what the Bible says. Get ready, Jesus says, if the teacher is hated, so are the students.
Yep.
And if you're not getting any pushback from the world, and you have an online audience, and you're not getting any pushback by the stuff you're saying, you may not be preaching the full gospel.
There's that. Okay.
And that is how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
Guys, we're excited to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Let us know what you think of the article, what you think of the vibes that we read. Where do you fall? Purity culture and what it said about that, what it accused Bethany of and other Christian influencers. Keep the convo going. We love you. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. We'll catch you again very soon. Have hope.
And be free. If you're in the live chat, we'll be right back.
As you may have noticed, we get very few brand deals, which is why our patrons, the names you see here, are so important.
You guys really are the lifeblood of this ministry. We could not do this without you.
What the?
If you believe in this content and you want to partner with us on Patreon, click the link below or just go to patreon.com/Paulandmorganshow.
Oh, wow.
Today is not the day.
Today is wild. I gotta see how this... Now we're like talking over ourselves.